Welcome to the Fall 2024 issue of Build My Barndo magazine. This podcast issue is sponsored by Wick Buildings, www.wickbuildings.com. You can jump ahead to any article you'd like with our chapter selection below, or listen to the broadcast in full.
Radiant floor heat can be an excellent choice for home heating, but like any other choice, there are pros and cons, and it's best to make an informed choice. Although radiant floor heat has been around for decades, it's becoming more and more popular as the benefits spread by word of mouth. Scott Patton, founder and owner of Indiana Warm Floors, IndianaWarmFloors.com, said potential customers hear about radiant heat and are intrigued. Typically, it seems like somebody has heard about it through either a friend or a relative that had the system, so they look into it and they say, "Hey, my buddy or my brother-in-law has this. I wanted to see about doing it at my place." And all they know is that it's a lot more comfortable and efficient than a conventional forced air system. Superior comfort. Radiant heat is considered more comfortable than forced air heat because, rather than just heating the air in a room, it heats the objects in the room directly, which creates a steadier, more consistent warmth. Plus, it heats joints and bodily fluids directly, promoting mobility. The comfort is the thing that's kind of hard to convey, Patton said, but once you've walked into a house and all the floors are warm, people just look at each other and say, "Oh my gosh, the floor is so amazing. Why wouldn't everybody build a house with floor heat?" Healthier heat. Radiant heat is quiet and healthier because it doesn't stir up dry, dusty air and allergens. With a regular furnace, Patton said, you've got a blower kicking on and off all the time and making air noise, blowing around dry, dusty air. Where radiant floor heat has been deemed to be the healthiest heating system because you don't have dry, dusty air getting blown around the house. Radiant heat is also better for humidity levels. The humidity stays at a really good level because you don't have that air getting blown around that's drying out the air, Patton said. So, there's really no need for a humidifier in the home. When the furnace heats up that air, the air expands, and it drives away the moisture. I continually hear about people with a bloody nose or dry nose or whatever who have a hot air furnace, but with the radiant heat you maintain the 30 to 40% humidity without buying a humidifier. Zone control. Patton pointed out that customers appreciate that, unlike forced air heat, radiant heat allows them to tailor heat to different areas of a structure. There's typically 3 to 5 zones in a residential home, he said. The garage might be at 50 degrees, the basement at 65, the main level at 68, the bathroom at 75. The bedrooms, especially the master bedroom, are often in a separate zone, so people can turn the heat down or off for cool sleeping. So, you can get the comfort and the control you want in each area, and that's what people really like. Lower operating cost, especially for larger spaces. One of the biggest advantages of hydronic radiant heat is that it is cheaper to run than forced air heat. Typically for residential you have about a 25% savings for operating a radiant heating system versus forced air heating, Patton said. If you think about these vaulted ceilings, if you use a hot air furnace, the hot air gets lightweight like helium, so it's 90 degrees at the ceiling and the floor is still cold, and your feet are cold, and the heat never shuts off. With radiant heat, we put the heat in the floor, and it stays right there. The air doesn't get hot and go to the ceiling. So, you're standing on the BTUs that you're paying for. And I think that's probably why the majority of the heating systems in Europe are radiant heat, because their utility costs over there are 3 to 5 times more than they are here. Because hydronic radiant heat efficiently heats large spaces, it's ideal for larger residences and commercial spaces. A boiler system that will heat a 1,200 square foot home is the exact same system that can heat all the way up to roughly 13,000 square feet. So, whether your home is 1,000 square feet or 13,000 square feet, that same boiler module that's going to be on the wall with the plumbing is going to be roughly the same. So that's the capacity of that unit. And most of the time we use a combi boiler that also generates hot water for showers, so it's got a dual function. The homeowner likes to hear that because they don't have to have a separate big, bulky hot water heater or even another tankless heater on the wall. It's all in one central unit. This means that owners can heat their garage, too, something that's generally not feasible with forced air heating. Typically, the boiler in the whole system can do it with or without the garage. The only additional expense at that point is the extra cost of the PEX and insulation for the garage. You already have the same investment in your boiler, so, incrementally, it's a very nice welcome option that people love, Patton said. With that, even in cold weather you can use the garage to wax the car or use it as a bonus room for the holidays. The kids can ride bikes out there, but they can just keep it set at 50 degrees if they want, just to melt the snow and ice off and keep the garage nice, he said. This explains why radiant heat is so popular in larger homes and combo shop/homes. Barndominiums have been a very strong segment of our business for the last 5 years, Patton said. We must have a dozen of them going right now. People are building 2,000 to 3,000 square foot living areas in a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot barn and call it a barndominium. People are buying property out in the sticks and putting up their barn, and they've got room for their toys. The husband is asking his wife to move into a barn, and she's saying not without warm floors, so it's a win-win. Fast installation. While installing the pipes, valves, controls, and boiler for hydronic radiant heat looks complicated like a big job, but it's actually a pretty fast job. A lot of people are surprised about how quickly our company does the installs, Patton said. Typically, all the pipe is installed in one day and then the boiler is installed in another day. So it's really just a 2-day process. The downside. Since radiant floor heating systems don't use ductwork, a separate system may need to be added for cooling, which may mean a central heating/cooling air system needs to be installed. Because of that, Patton explained, there is some redundancy because we are providing all the heat in the floor. But then we still need a duct system, which a lot of times, the blower for the duct system is the furnace. But it can also blow out warm air, which is desirable in spring and the fall, when you just want to add a little heat to the house without actually turning the floors on because it might be a mild day when you have the windows open in the afternoon. But you do have that expense of the furnace and the ductwork on top of the radiant heat, so that's where the extra cost comes in. Many people are willing to pay for it because they want the comfort and efficiency. Adding a central air system isn't the only option, however. We actually offer products like an air-to-water heat pump that can provide heating and cooling to both the radiant heat and the air handler for the air conditioning, Patton said. So, there are different options for every situation out there. It doesn't always have to be a gas-fired boiler or an electric boiler. The extra initial cost of the radiant heat installation is made up over the long term by the lower operating cost. The energy savings will pay for the extra expense over a period of time, and people don't really care about that so much, Patton said. They just want to know it does pay for itself eventually, and they really want the comfort and the control. Conclusion. I've been installing radiant heat since 1979, when I started the company, Patton said. Each year, it becomes more and more popular. People experience it and they just can't believe every house doesn't have it. They like the efficiency, the control, and the quietness, and there is just the overall comfort, and a lot of people are keying into the health. When customers have radiant heat installed, they're following new trends for the interior, and they tend not to do traditional flooring. They're building new homes, and they're not putting in any carpet, Patton explained. They're just doing stained or painted concrete floors. Most people who don't know about radiant floor heat think you have to have plush carpet to have warm floors, but that's not true with radiant heat. Not having carpet makes it easier to have clean floors because bare floors are easier to clean. People just love the cleanliness and the health aspect. Whether customers decide to invest in radiant heating or not, they should choose at the very beginning of the planning because some options are one-shot only, as it may be prohibitively expensive or impossible to change after construction is complete. I typically get all positive feedback on the radiant heat, Patton said, but sometimes the customer will skip doing their garage, or they'll limit themselves by only doing 2 zones to try to save a little bit of money on the front end, and they always, it's a guarantee, they always come back and say I should have just done the 4 zones or I should have done the garage, too, because this is unreal comfort. Advantages of radiant floor heat. Radiant floor heat works very well in rooms with high ceilings and with doors or windows. Radiant heat doesn't heat air, but rather the objects in a room. When heat in the space is held by air rather than the objects in a room, the heat can rapidly flow out of an open space with the airflow. Radiant floor heat creates even heat throughout a space, including vertically from floor to ceiling. This avoids hot and cold spots, allowing better comfort and control of heating, and perhaps a lower thermostat setting. Unlike forced air, radiant floor heat is silent and no heat is lost in air ducts. Radiant floor heat makes it easier to create controlled heat zones, which means less wasted heat. The thermostat can be used at a lower setting and provides more comfort. With installation of radiant floor heat, concrete will retain heat for a long time after heat is turned off. Radiant floor heat works well under ceramic and porcelain tile, stone, and marble because they conduct heat well and don't expand or contract, so they're resistant to cracking. These non-porous materials are often used in bathrooms and kitchens rather than carpet because they're waterproof but are cold to the feet if not heated. For people with allergies, radiant floor heat is better than forced air heat because there's no moving air to stir up dust and other allergens. Also, hard surfaces don't retain dust. Radiant floor heat improves comfort and mobility because it heats joints and bodily fluid directly. With radiant floor heat, no floor or wall space is taken up as it is with radiators, air vents, a fireplace, or wood stove. This also allows more flexibility in arranging furniture, since there's nothing to be blocked. It's a good option for additions where it's not feasible to connect to the current heating system. Disadvantages of radiant floor heat. Radiant floor heat is slower to heat spaces. Heavy carpet doesn't work well with radiant floor heat because it's not a good heat conductor. It acts like an insulator blocking heat distribution, although this can be overcome with system design. With radiant floor heat, caution needs to be used when installing a nailed-down floor, such as a hardwood floor, because nails that are too long or misplaced could damage wires used for electrical radiant floor heat or puncture water tubes used in hydronic radiant floor heat. Radiant floor heat may have a higher upfront installation cost than a furnace. Hydronic radiant floor heat requires pumps, valves, and other parts that require periodic maintenance. With radiant floor heat, any needed repairs may be expensive because the systems are located within the floor and are not easily accessible. A conventional central air conditioning system relies on ductwork, which isn't used for radiant floor heating, so a separate cooling system might need to be used when relying on radiant floor heat. In a room with a large window or many windows, passive solar heat might overheat a room with radiant floor heat. The fluctuating nature of solar heat may make it hard to regulate temperature in a room with radiant floor heat. Other resources. Energy. Gov/Energy Savers/Radiant Heating. Barndominiums or not. Authored by Linda Schmid. If you have seen a post and beam building in recent years, your first impression was probably something like, wow, this is beautiful. Your second thought, if you know about barndominiums, was likely, is this a barndominium? There are good reasons for wondering. Post and beam homes and barndos can share many features. And post and beam construction has become more popular recently due to its aesthetic quality, durability, and one could argue, also because people seem more open to alternative forms of construction in recent decades. What is a post and beam home? Josiah Loy of Country Carpenters, Inc. said, post and beam is full-dimension framing construction. Basically, it's a style using large timbers rather than the conventional framing used in traditionally built homes. Like barndominiums, less framing is needed for these buildings because the members are larger and stronger than the wood commonly used in home construction. There are no studs and trusses are often not used, rafters are used instead, and often these timbers are exposed. Loy said that people tend to find the look impressive and assume that all that lovely wood must be expensive, but because less framing and less sheetrock is required, the cost can be a little more or similar to a traditional stick-built home. Often post and beam homes feature wide open space and cathedral ceilings can be achieved like barndominiums. A little history. A version of post and beam that used mortise and tenons was used to construct buildings for thousands of years in England. They connect with a chiseled-out space where the next member fits. When settlers came to America and found plentiful forests full of wood, they instituted post and beam building, which is what they used to build covered bridges and barns. Many post and beam buildings from the colonial period can still be seen in New England today. Loy said this building style came back into popularity in the mid-1970s. Many people were building beautiful post and beam barns. In Vermont, a man named Ted Benson, the founder of Benson Wood, wrote a book about post and beam construction which helped to kickstart this reintroduction to post and beam for the masses. Around the same time, Roger Barrett Sr. founded Country Carpenters, Inc. and started taking down old tobacco barns and using the wood to make custom homes. Since then, more and more people have fallen in love with the aesthetic and historical aspect of this construction style. There is a feeling that many homes today are built with two X4s slapped together, Loy observed, and when people realize that some homes, barns and sheds built with post and beam are still standing after 350 years, they are impressed. Today, post and beam construction is similar to post frame or metal barndominiums in that the frame takes the load, leaving the builder free to place interior walls wherever they are wanted. None of them is load-bearing. The wood Loy's team uses is primarily eastern white pine, or occasionally Douglas fir or spruce. It may be a mix of raw material, green not pressure treated or kiln dried. It dries naturally over time. Often the siding is premium grade kiln dried eastern white pine and roofs can be wood, or asphalt shingles or metal panels. The loft decking, roof boards and ceiling boards are kiln dried. Of course, a wood exterior is not a necessity. While there is no doubt that a wood exterior is aesthetically pleasing to many people, it is also true that there will be some maintenance required. Metal siding and roofing can be used with a post and beam building. Further, with many of the newer printed and textured panels, you may be able to achieve the look of wood while enjoying the low maintenance of metal. Loy adds that because of the freedom that comes with laying out a post and beam home, some people have taken a DIY kit for a simple building, then turned it into a barndominium. If a builder wants to, they can have the big, attached garage, workshop, or barn space. That is a feature of the barndominium. Another aspect of post and beam that calls to mind barndominium buildings is that you can have continuous insulation in the walls with no thermal breaks where the heat or cold can easily get through. This is great for energy efficiency in any house. You can use spray foam, a very effective insulator, or other types of insulation. Some buildings feature SIPs, structural insulated panels. Bringing it all together. To sum up, post and beam is a legitimate construction option to build a home. More and more people are taking an interest in it due to the striking aesthetic and the solidity of these buildings. The question is it for you? Let's consider how it matches up to the features people look for in a barndominium. Clear spans and cathedral ceilings are possible with post and beam. Due to a load-bearing frame, the layout can largely be customized to the owner's liking. A post and beam building can equal the energy efficiency of a barndominium. If a low-maintenance exterior is what you seek, you can clad your post-beam home in metal. An oversized garage or workspace can be incorporated in the structure as Barndos incorporate them. The post and beam construction style is unlikely to be the cheapest way to build your home's frame. It may be comparable or even favorable compared to traditional framing. The strength and longevity of this building method in the right hands cannot be disputed. However, we cannot make a true comparison since post-frame construction and steel frame construction have not been around as long. Finally, early in this article, we posed the question, can you call a post and beam home a barndominium? It seems that, if you so choose, it can have enough of the common traits of a barndominium to be allowed to take its place in the Barndo world, particularly when the owner opts to include the large garage or workshop space. But we'll let you be the judge. The Perfect Kitchen for Your Barndo. Authored by Linda Schmid. From the moment you decide you are going to build a new home, you are committed to making dozens, no hundreds of other choices. Everything from big decisions like where you want to live to small things like choosing a doormat. While it can be a bit overwhelming sometimes, it is all part of creating something uniquely yours, so exciting. One area in the home that often gets a lot of attention is the kitchen. Whether you have a lifestyle filled with cooking for friends and family, or you prefer to pop a pizza in the oven and spend your time focused on those around the table, there is a kitchen that is just your style. While we can't tell you what your style is, we can fill you in on some of the trends in modern kitchens. Overall trends. Overall, the focus is still largely on naturalistic design that gives a sense of well-being, whether that stems from wood elements, natural colors, or spaces filled with natural light. This kind of bring nature inside design was developed in response to people's emotional reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic, where many people spent a lot of time indoors feeling cut off from the outside world. These designs have struck a chord with many and continue in popularity. People are also looking for elements that feel personalized while retaining a sleek, minimalistic space that is easy to clean. Layout. Much like the overall design trends were hugely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, so the actual workspace has also been affected. With so many people returning to the kitchen to eat instead of dining out, and some even learning to bake bread, and many using their kitchens as study and office spaces too, the kitchen is now required to be as functional as possible. This means plenty of counter space to work and, hopefully, a layout that does not cause traffic jams. Much of the workspace is being built in by adding large islands, which are often also the kitchen's aesthetic focal point. These can be created of mixed materials in different colors. For example, the base may be wood or a wood reproduction that matches the trim, and the top may be a counter material that matches the cabinet fronts, or it could be granite. The opportunities to create your own look are endless. The islands are often tiered with different levels, for example a workspace and a higher ledge outfitted with bar-style stools for eating or doing homework. Windows. In keeping with the desire to bring nature into the kitchen, people add many windows. Some even do a wall of windows if they have an open perimeter wall. Often the wall of windows may be on the other side of a great room, which still can fill your kitchen with light depending on the layout. Often people use glass doors on pantry spaces to bring natural light into that space too. Cupboards. In the interests of natural light, some people have cabinets installed with windows at the back. With glass cupboard doors, you have a lovely sunlit display that adds much to the ambient light. Cupboards are often wood, though they tend toward the lighter wood/stains, like a light oak. If they are painted or a porous resurfacer is used, they tend to be in lighter colors also. Often homeowners opt for cupboards without handles to polish. There are contemporary cupboard fronts that are very sleek and easy to clean, particularly if you choose to go without the hardware. Colors. The trends are tans, light grays, blues, or greens. These calming colors are often chosen for cupboards or other kitchen surfaces. As mentioned before, natural or naturalistic wood tones can bring in a sense of nature also. White is still in style, but many are turning to softer, creamier shades of white. People who are striving for something different, yet still trendy, may use blacks, graphites, moody greens, even a midnight blue. When light or natural colors are chosen, people will often add a pop of color, whether that is the cupboard fronts, counters, stove surround, island, or other elements. Counters and backsplashes. Quartz countertops are still one of the top choices for countertops, but ceramics, especially porcelains, are popular choices as people discover that they are heat-resistant and more affordable. A common application is a backsplash that extends into the countertop. This creates a sleek look and an easy clean surface. Plus, there are many style choices including botanical prints, subway tiles, or oak lookalikes. Floors. Staining or polishing the concrete slab are well-loved floor treatments in the Barndominium niche. A variety of very attractive looks can be attained by adding water-based stains or acetone dyes, and high-gloss finishes reflect light for a dazzling look. Another very popular choice in home flooring is wood, whether natural, engineered, or a luxury vinyl replication. Longer, narrower boards seem to elongate a home, and the lighter, warmer shades create a cozy, welcoming atmosphere. Walls and trims. Ceilings may be vaulted, and coffered ceilings are highly desirable. Larger baseboards, board and batten chair rails, and/or woodwork add a high-end feeling to the decor. Kitchen appliances and technology. Induction cooktops, integrated into countertops with controls for a delayed start so dinner starts before you get home, are very popular. People are choosing more and more appliances that incorporate technology as well as ergonomic design for intergenerational living, such as dishwashers that are at the right level so that no one hurts their back, and foot sensors to open the trash can or dishwasher in case your hands are full. Even cabinetry can be more accessible with motion sensors and shelves that pull down and out, giving accessibility to the coffee maker or mixer. Lighting. Pendant lights over the island or table continue to be fashionable, and under-cabinet lighting is growing in popularity. Even drawers can have lights in them now. People are incorporating charging stations into islands that can be hidden, then pop up, and outlets can be incorporated into the countertop. Storage trends. It's not only charging stations that can be hidden. Whole pantries can be concealed with a door that looks just like your cabinet. The plan is to create kitchens that are well thought out to provide organization and storage along with the look you love. The perfect kitchen. Naturally, the perfect kitchen is different for different people. Hopefully, this survey of trends has given you some ideas. There are many options to choose from when designing your kitchen. Take time to see what products and features are available and what makes sense for you based on functionality and budget. Happy planning! Zoning and Your Barndominium. Authored by JJ's Custom Builders and BuildMyBarndo.com staff. Your questions answered. Like death and taxes, zoning laws are inevitable, although perhaps not quite as dreaded. They can vary from municipality to municipality and township to township, but they must be considered and satisfied your home is planned. It would not be good for anyone if halfway through the build, it were to be discovered that the Barndo doesn't conform to the zoning laws. It could delay the project, cause major changes to your plan, or even require a different site for the project. In fact, it is good to start the zoning process a few months before the project gets underway. The basics. The first thing you need to know is that as the landowner you are required to sign off on the application, so it's not really something the contractor can just go off and complete on their own. However, the ordinances can be 300 pages long, so it is not always a simple thing to do. Other times a person will walk into the zoning office, show a sketch, it is rubber stamped, and the zoning piece of the process is complete. However, that is not the norm. Some builders or contractors will assist you with the zoning, which is a great help, naturally, but many do not have the manpower and resources to do it. J.J. King, Director of Operations at JJ's Custom Builders, said that his company provides turnkey building projects, so they made the decision that they would provide that help. They have an associate who is assigned to handle that aspect of their projects, and he has become very knowledgeable about it. He has built relationships with engineers and system designers, and he is very successful at ensuring that the zoning requirements are met. If your builder chooses not to help with zoning, you may want to ask them about who in the community might be helpful, or do some research and find out who is a good resource to work with. There are companies, online expediters, who offer this service, but if they are not cognizant of local ordinances, they may not be the best resource. A good starting point. Zoning applications are usually available online, and it should not be difficult to find the website. Try searching the city and planning and zoning, and usually the site will come up. The best starting point is to fill out the application and gather the site plan, which shows where on the property the building will reside, along with size, use, illustrations, and any other documentation requested, and take it all in person to the zoning and planning office. JJ advises that right from the start you talk to the receptionist and the zoning officer like they are partners and start building a friendly working relationship. Be aware that there will be an application fee. This is usually not very expensive. You may also want to consult a zoning map online so you will know before you enter the office whether there may be any discrepancies between the plan and the zoning. Usage is a big part of zoning. Areas are usually zoned residential, commercial, or industrial. If you are building a barndominium and the plan involves running a business out of it, it may be acceptable in a residential zone and it may not. It usually depends on whether a lot of pollution, noise, or traffic will be generated by the business, but every municipality is different, and some can be very restrictive. Particular to post frame? Most of the zoning requirements will be the same for all types of construction, though you may find that in order to be in compliance, the plan might require some unusual features for post frame, like insulating panels required around the foundation. Usually aesthetics do not come into zoning, although if the barndo you are building is not very residential looking, resistance may ensue or a zoning change may be required, JJ said. The more attractive the proposed building is perceived to be, the less likely it is to be challenged. Homeowners associations, HOAs, on the other hand, are generally more concerned with aesthetics than the zoning people are, JJ said. If an HOA is involved where the building site is located, it is best to get their approval first. Bring in a quality rendering or 3D model to show them what an asset it will be to the neighborhood. Once they approve it, talk to the zoning department. Zoning considerations. Typical guidelines in zoning are in regard to the planned use of the site and the buildings, the height and shape of a building. Zoning requirements may seek to limit height to conform to the surrounding neighborhood or to avoid blocking a view. There are usually setbacks, requirements regarding space between the building and public right-of-ways and other property lines to be met also. Lot size compared to the size of the building. How the building is oriented on the site. For example, is the back facing the road in a neighborhood where the houses all line up with the front facing the street? Where are extra structures placed? Sometimes zoning requires extra buildings to be located behind the main structure. Sometimes a detached garage is not allowed, though one solution may be joining the buildings with a breezeway. Where are the septic and well going to be located? The land must pass the percolation (perk) test, and if it doesn't, the landowner will need to specify a mound system space and a backup space for the system. The federal government as well as states have guidelines for stormwater management, which again will vary from site to site. What bracket or level of management is required for the site should be determined early on because the bracket may affect your plans. For example, if a 1,500 sq-foot building was planned, but taking it down to 1,495 square feet would take the bracket down from PVC piping and drainage fields to simple gutters, you might save thousands of dollars. Variances. If building plans are countermanded by the zoning regulations, you can apply for a variance. However, you must be able to present a strong case regarding why you cannot do what the regulations call for. The application should be written by a lawyer or other professional who is familiar with zoning, and it should be presented as a hardship. You will be required to pay a variance fee, and as JJ said, there is no guarantee that you will be given the variance. Keep that in mind if you decide to pursue a variance.